Hello, welcome to the May edition of Third Tuesday Conversation. This is Danica Olson, and we're glad to have you with us to have a conversation with Pastor Karen Stevensen, who is many things. Her credentials include pastor, counselor, life coach, therapist, teacher, and what else, Karen? Mother, wife,
Non-techie.
superwoman.
No, I'm non-techie though.
That's quite all right. Well, we invited Karen here to talk with us today about, we had heard her speak to a group about peer groups and about support and authenticity within a group of peers, but we thought this is a relevant topic for people in ministry and maybe just human beings in general to have some important reminders about how we are in relationship with one another and how it is that we can be authentic and be heard as well as hear one another. So before we jump in, if this is your first time joining us, make sure that you join the conversation by submitting your questions or comments into the box on the right-hand side of your screen labeled questions. And we'd love for you to live tweet during this conversation using the hashtag 3TC. Welcome, Karen. We're excited to have you. I wonder if you could tell our audience about a little bit about your background, about what you're up to when you're not sitting in your therapist's office. Anything you'd like for us to know.
Here's the shy side of me, Danica. Well, let's see. I like to do pottery on the wheel. I'm a big reader. I like to go up north and hike and take the dogs out for walks. Kind of anything physical, since all day long I just sit in a chair and listen to people's problems. So when I'm off, I like to get out and move and do something.
Awesome. Well, listen to people's problems. You're so cute. I suppose that's part of the deal when you're a therapist.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
People pay you to listen to their problems.
They do.
Sometimes they don't pay me to do that. I just listen anyway. You got the good end of that deal.
I do.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right in. You've got these 9 bullet points, and I just would love for you to talk us through them and help us to be better, authentic human beings.
Okay, so the first one, I think the glue in relationships is empathy. Whether we're talking about marriage or a friendship or talking to a therapist or being in a small group together, all of us in life are longing for that sense that this person gets who I am. And one of the things that we don't often take a risk to do is share our actual observations, what we're thinking in our heads when people are talking. A lot of times we have like this information that comes from our soul, our spirit, our own life experience, like our perception, and we don't always put that out there. We don't always take the risk with the person who's sharing to acknowledge that we get them or to add in what was actually going on in our heads. And I think in a genuine relationship, you, in a sense, contract to do that. Like in a counselor's office, we would say something like, would it be okay if I shared what I was thinking as you were telling me about that or describing that? So we ask permission. But then we take a bold risk. We put something out there so that the person could say, yes, no, you're getting me or you're not. But what it communicates symbolically is I'm actually trying to get you. I'm stepping in and listening to you with the screens and filters of my own life experience and how I see things, and I'm not just passive.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think that moves to your next point about the active listening, but not making it about you.
Right. So sometimes if I want to communicate that I get that, I'll share an experience from my own life as my way to say I get what you're saying. But what happens then is an awkward thing, and I think it happens to all of us. It happens to me too, even though I'm aware of it. But sometimes I'll share a story about me, and it's really hard for the person who is talking to bring it back to themselves. There's like an awkwardness there of now we've shifted to you, and it's really hard for the original speaker to take another risk at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you're in a conversation with somebody, try and stay with what they're saying and use what they said as an example and clarify or ask questions, but don't switch to an entire story about yourself if it's possible.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how that, especially that one, comes into play when we're talking either the first one that we just talked about or the second bullet point, when talking to kids? Because I think sometimes in order for them to, like when we try to help them understand, we do understand what they're talking about, it gets lost in the shuffle, especially with kids when they can't then bring it back to themselves.
Yeah, because as an adult, we've had similar experiences, so we want to communicate that we do understand what they're saying, or we've had that same experience in our life. But once we do that, now it's hard for them to grab the power back and say, so let me continue on.
Yeah.
They'll usually just kind of end that whole thing. So in those kind of situations, it's better to go, well, like, help me to get what you mean better, or say more. Like, that's a really great sentence to get a person to continue, is to say, yeah, I'm with you, so say more about that and what that's like for you.
Yeah.
Like, shake your head to show that you, as a human being, understand, versus as an adult saying, well, yeah, I remember that. It'd be far more powerful to shake your head or use eyes or nonverbals to say, yeah. Like, and you're affirming what they're saying versus trying to show that you know what they mean.
Yeah.
But you're affirming them this way.
Okay. Is that also like a boundary thing?
Yeah, and these, boundaries are hard. I don't think they're very easy. I think boundaries are hard. We get to that in number 8, though.
Oh,
so
okay.
You're kind
Sorry.
Of ahead.
Sorry.
I'm teasing. No,
Oh, hold my tongue.
Really good. No. You're right on the mark. You're moving ahead. So this one, number 3, about cueing each other. There's this author. His name is John Goodman, and he's written a lot about marriage. And he can watch a couple who's married for 3 minutes and tell you whether they're going to make it in their marriage or be divorced. And what he's looking for is cueing, and it's something that we all want to develop in ourselves. But I wrote down just basics like nodding your head or saying helps the person who's talking feel like you're understanding and they can continue on.
Sure.
Have you ever talked to an audience, particularly like with kids, where nobody shakes their head and you feel like you're just totally out there on your own and they just leave you hung out to dry?
Never.
Okay. So
Yeah,
if that
right.
ever happens, and it happens like in sermons in churches, like if you don't actually have a relationship with the people you're preaching to, they, if they're Lutherans, they're worse than anybody. But they will stare at you like you are from outer space and none of what you're saying has any relevance to their life. So part of how you get, and that makes you not want to take any more risks or be genuine with them because you just feel so out there. But if you say, hey, like say you're talking to a group of kids and they're just staring at you, you can say, I'll be needing you guys to like shake your head up and down or back and forth so that I can continue talking because I lose myself if you just sit there.
Yeah.
So help me, like ask them to join you, and this is their part. And the same thing happens in a one-to-one conversation. If the person doesn't shake their head, then actually don't continue on until they're willing to join you a little bit.
Yeah.
Same in marriage. If your partner is just staring at you while you're sharing your day and telling your feelings, then say, I'll be needing like an up and down head nod or sideways. I'll be needing something here. Always engage your speaker to join you, because you're really saying, I don't want to just be talking at you. I wanted to converse. I wanted us to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's super important. I think
Okay.
It happens with my husband all the time. Like, are you in there? Are you listening?
Right. So I kind of actually covered this one when we were talking about number one.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't looking ahead. But I do think it's really powerful in people. So here's what happens as a therapist. When I share I would call it in my mind, my observation or my judgment on a person. When I share that, almost 100% of the time, the person I'm talking to starts crying really hard. And why they're crying is they heard truth.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of longing for someone to speak our truth. So say I'm with a guy and I know he's a good guy, and yes, he's messed up or whatever, but when I can name the pieces in him that I really do respect and that I see in him that he's a really good person, when I can name that and articulate it in a way that rings true to who he is, and it's something I actually see in him, then he will go to tears. He'll feel the connection and he'll become tearful because it feels so affirming of you got me. And I think we're kind of shy about taking those risks to put it out there. So I'm kind of saying, in a real relationship, put it out there. If they say, no, it's not like that, or whatever, it's like, well, you're fine. You're still showing that you're walking with them. You're not just leaving there hanging out to dry. They're the only one vulnerable in the room, and you aren't willing to take a risk.
Yeah. It's really powerful when someone speaks your own story back to you also, that it's about being heard and seen and validated, that it's real.
Yep. So number 5, next. That was a little pre-joke with Danica. I was asking her, how do we know when to switch to the next point? And she said, somebody said next. I was like, well, that'll work. Then this one is, it says pigs and chickens. So there was this pig and this chicken, and they were standing outside this farmer's window looking in. And the chicken says to the pig, oh, I love every morning watching the farmers eat breakfast. I feel so good about what I contribute. Eggs. Then the pig looks at him and goes, oh, that's easy for you to say. You just contribute. Me, I'm all in. Bacon. So in life, there's relationships where both people are pigs, or the group is a pig with one another. They're all in. They're loyal. They take risks. You know that they're on your team. You know that they'll be vulnerable with you. Those kinds of things. In other relationships, there's one pig and there's one chicken. And in those relationships, I think there's always a tension or an anxiety in the relationship. And I'm going to come back with some examples. And then some relationships just have 2 chickens, and they just peck at each other all the time. In marriage, I say they peck at each other till death do them part. So the goal in life is to be a pig. And let me give you an example of where I've been a chicken in my life. Say that I get asked to be on a board committee, and I go to the first couple meetings, and there's no training for me as a board member, and I really don't get what we're doing or what this is all about or how my gifts would contribute to this group and the decisions that are being made. And I feel kind of bored and like an outsider and like I don't belong and I don't get it. What happens on the third meeting is I say, geez, I don't really want to go tonight. Well, that's me being a chicken, and I have a choice to make. I am either a chicken and I eventually just kind of fall out of this group or this relationship or this marriage, or I'm a pig, and I go, hang on, you're going to need to give me some instructions on what this board is about, and what is my purpose, and why did you ask me, and what gifts of mine am I to bring here? I'd have to step towards people and say what I need and want from the group, um, and like be out there with that feeling. So like here, let me give you another example. I had a young man who was brought to me by his parents for counseling. He was 17. He was smoking too much weed, drinking too much, and his parents brought him because they were all scared. And I asked him to share about himself, and one of the things he told me is he was elected to be captain of his wrestling team. So I told him about the pig and chicken story, and I said, so as captain, are you going to be a chicken or a pig? And he looked at me and he said, I suppose a chicken. And I said, well, I think that's why your parents are bringing you into counseling, is they see you being a chicken in your life, and they were hoping you'd be a pig. And my guess is that the kids on your wrestling team were hoping when they elected you captain of the team that they'd have a pig as captain of the wrestling team their senior year. And I think in life we are either deciding to be pigs or we are chickens. But the discontent, our tension, our anxiety, our boredom, our whatever, the angst comes when we're being chickens. Once we step all the way in and we're me being me in this situation, I'm a pig and I'm in.
Yeah.
And it feels so much better. So, like, I've asked people sometimes, do you think Jesus was a pig or a chicken? And like most people would say, a pig. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus was dealing with people. Jesus was taking risks. Jesus was out there. No, they weren't all happy. It caused conflict. It made people confused. It was, it stirred it all up.
Yeah.
But Jesus was definitely a pig. Jesus wasn't walking around pecking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example. Talk to me about this one, about gripes, because this never happens to church professionals. We never hear any griping ever.
Right. So when people are griping, well, here's the thing I say in marriage counseling, you never need to say a criticism to your partner. Just ask for what you need and want. And the same in church. When somebody gripes, you can switch from that passion of anger or hurt or just complaining energy to getting them to be thoughtful, reflective, responsive by asking them, what do you need or want? It shifts the energy, and it validates what they're saying, but it gets them out of the complaining mode and into something you can actually deal with.
I think this is a tricky one, for many reasons, but sometimes people just sort of throw all of it at you in an email. This is like my worst. I just hate that so much that they're chicken to come and actually have a actual conversation about it. But they just, throw every dig and sling every kind of poop at you. How is it that you respond to something like that? Obviously calling them back is, instead of emailing, but that's a tricky one, I think.
Well, oftentimes, have you ever, those icebergs in Alaska, how the top third that you see of the iceberg, that third I would call anger, and the bottom 2/3 of the iceberg you don't see is usually hurt or fear. So when people don't want to be vulnerable, you get the anger, the top third. Yeah. So you can shift the whole conversation and grow closer to this person, connect with them better. If you take a guess at what is on the bottom, what's those 2/3? Are they afraid or are they hurt?
Yeah.
And then respond into that, and it'll shift the conversation.
That's good. That's a good one. Talk about the self-awareness piece.
So I wrote down as, what do you do to become self-aware? I wrote these questions. I ask people sometimes to take a 3x5 card and put a straw tally of how often they ask themselves these questions and then bring it back to me after a week. and I encourage them to ask themselves these questions hundreds of times a day, because part of becoming intimate, which the root of intimacy is intima, which means know thyself. So in order to connect with another person, first I have to know me, and what do I think, and how do I feel about stuff. All of us are really good at guessing at what the other person thinks and feels and needs and wants because we're pleasers, or we like defer and don't want to have conflict or don't want to be rejected or vulnerable. So we're looking at the other person and trying to guess, but in a, like where I'm a pig and I'm authentic and I can just be me in a relationship, I am taking risks to know me first and then to put it out there.
Good. That's very helpful.
Okay.
All right, now I skipped way ahead, but now we're there.
Okay, so boundaries, like if you drew a circle on your paper, and then next to it did a dotted line circle, in the circle where it's just a solid line circle, sometimes we don't get close to people because we draw the line too rigid around ourselves and we don't allow anyone in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't really feel like we're connected. We end up feeling like an outsider or like we don't belong. And then in the dotted circle one, sometimes I share too much of what is going on in me, and I wasn't making sure that this person was safe to share that with, and then I could have the experience of feeling ashamed afterwards. And we've all had this happen where you feel awkward because you shared stuff and they didn't share it and whatever. So the way I think of boundaries is on the line or on that dotted line, I need to ask my question, this time that I'm with this person, so it's particular to each situation, do I feel comfortable sharing this, and would I feel okay with what I shared afterwards? Like, so example, I may generally think my husband's safe to open up to, but if he's reading the iPad news and writing emails, and I'm about to open my heart with the most devastating part of my day, it might not actually feel safe afterwards because I'll feel like he wasn't listening. You get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have to pay attention to right now, is this okay, or will I feel badly? And then I could make decisions like I need to ask him, I got something, can we talk about it, and let me know when it's a good time, so that now I'm creating a safe place for me to open up, and I'm acknowledging my feelings and taking good care of me so I could take risks, and then he could also get, feel close to me on the other end of this.
Yeah, that's good. Just as a reminder for people who are listening in, we've got one more point, and then we'll open it up for your questions. So you'll want to shoot those in so that we can get them to Karen.
Okay.
All right, number 9.
Last one. Number 9, last one. So all of us tend to be victims. We're like hoping that people will get real and genuine and authentic, and it turns out it's me. I'm the one who creates it. If we all walk around in the world saying, apparently it's me, then we would do better. Like, you be the energy that creates the place that's safe to be open and vulnerable and genuine with other people, and that's how you'll experience life.
Huh. Can you say more about that? Like, is this like an example? Well, I guess that would be a pig and chicken example, so let me rethink this. Do you have an example? Sorry.
Well, when I'm in a group, sometimes I feel bored, and it's because people are talking very surfacey or kind of acquaintance level shop talk.
Okay.
Sometimes I can turn the entire group around by just being real. Me taking a risk to say something meaningful and something that's actually true that's going on. Yeah. And then I end up enjoying that night, and so do they.
Okay. So would that be like your Bible study conversation, the Bible study you and your husband are in?
Sure, yeah.
That was sort of an example I had, but I couldn't remember if that was a pig and chicken example.
Oh, Danica's referring to when I gave this lecture. I said we were joining a church and we had to go to Bible study, and we were bored the first couple times because they were just talking about this the Bible text, and we just weren't talking about anything real. And then we got in the car and we had this little talk, and we were like going, well, actually, we haven't stepped in and been ourselves. We didn't want to pull the pastor card or act like know-it-alls or whatever. We wanted other people to talk, and it turns out we went to the lowest common denominator. So actually, if we be real, sometimes it creates the space for them to be really genuine, and we don't usually act in ways that would put people off, so we could trust that and just be genuine with what this text means to us or what we're thinking.
Cool. I think that's, I mean, when you invite the authenticity, other people step up there too. So good. Well, here comes our questions. So I'm just going to jump right in. Russ is wondering, or says, men sometimes will not open up and be real because it seems too touchy-feely. What do you suggest in this situation?
I think guys are longing to be real, and I think they're longing for meaning. They do it a lot with their wives, because with other men they're too jockeying around for alpha male or whatever. But I think the men who come into my office, they can be very vulnerable, more so than women sometimes. It's actually so right there, but they're just not doing it with guys.
So it's a guy-to-guy thing.
I think so. I think guys to guys have to establish, let's get over that.
And how does that, I mean, you can't probably speak from experience because you aren't one, but
right.
But how do you break that boundary? How do you move past that?
It's like number 9, be real, and then you'll invite the other guy to be real.
Okay, cool. Sue has a statement, nice insight about being helpful by using a personal example, but it puts people off. I'll work on that, she says. I know that in my own experience that, we had talked about this as a peer group piece, but that the authenticity is extremely, I mean, it's real and authentic when everybody is a pig, when everybody steps all in. I'm reading a book, actually we're reading a book for our peer group right now called Carry On Warrior, and I don't know if you've read this book.
No, sounds good.
It's really good, and her name is Glennon Melton, and it's called The Power of Embracing Your Messy, Beautiful Life. But what's great about it is in the first few chapters, she talks about essentially these 9 bullet points that she was hanging out with a friend and realized that she didn't actually ever have a real conversation with this woman until she went all in. And she knew that this woman was struggling in her marriage, but this woman had no idea about her background as a drug addict and these kinds of things. And the moment she dared to be vulnerable was the moment that the other woman went all in too and said, I thought you had it all together and I thought you had this perfect life. Anyway, fantastic book so far. I'm only partway through, but like I said, hits on a lot of these bullet points. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Krista is wondering, what are 3 questions that you tell the clients to ask themselves 100 times a day? Oh, slide 7. We'll go back. All right. What do you think? Or, excuse me, you want to say more about that?
Yeah. What do I think? How do I feel? What do I need or want? And from who?
Awesome. Yvonne is wondering if these points will be posted. Yes, Yvonne, they'll be posted in the archives later this week in the Third Tuesday Conversation archives. So any last second insights that you want to share with us, Karen?
I have none.
She's fresh out of ideas. I love this. Well, thank you so much for being with us. This is a fantastic conversation. We hope that everybody will dare to be authentic human beings and use these points in ministry and in life so that we can stop walking around like chickens and um, really get to something. I
Hmm.
think that's important. Just a few housekeeping things. Third Tuesday Conversations, as I said, are all archived under Third Tuesday Conversation archives. So you can go back and listen to any of these. Karen's been on with us before. It's been a couple years, but um, always enjoy what you have to say, Karen. A couple other things. The extravaganza theme next year is wonder. Um, During the month of June, you can submit workshop proposals, and already in July, registration opens. So be watching for some of that in the network e-news. And May is our last Third Tuesday conversation. We take a respite for the summer because we all know that most people are not around. They're on youth trips and various things. So we will see you or hear you or connect with you again this fall. We hope you have a great summer and that your ministries are full of blessings um, and that your eyes are aware and open to God's work in the world. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the fall.